Lots to talk about in terms of Russia and Ukraine today. Let's start with Germany and the agreement between the German and Ukrainian leaders. What is it and what does it mean?
Good morning, Lorna. I think we've seen a very significant shift in the tone and style of German involvement in trying to bring this war to its conclusion since Chancellor Merz has taken over. What he is offering is a cooperation with Ukraine to develop long-range missiles. We think it's probably based on the German Taurus cruise missile. It's a very sophisticated missile with a range of about 500 kilometres. Interestingly, it's a co-development, and I think we're all learning that the Ukrainians can probably improve on the German technology. They have adapted to the countermeasures that the Russians have imposed upon them in almost a 100-day adaptation cycle. So it will be a very significant co-development. What I think is also significant is that Merz has said they will remove any restrictions on striking back into mainland Russia. And I think that is also it signifies a very significant shift in intent. As your previous report has said, this comes at a time when Russia, if anything, is amping up its attacks on the Ukrainian community.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if other EU partners follow suit in that, won't it? Let's talk about the peace talks then, or the proposal for talks. I believe last time Vladimir Putin suggested this. Talks in Turkey, he said, next week, he said, and then he didn't turn up.
Yeah, look, I think this is classic Putin behaviour. He thinks he is the dominant leader, probably thinks he's the dominant leader in Europe. It's clear that he is not intimidated by Trump in any way. And so his sending of very low-level officials to the meetings that were conducted in Turkey, I think were a very significant signal that he is going to try and dictate the terms. He's proposing new talks on the 2nd of June, and we already see he's signalling that there will be a demand that Ukraine not be part of NATO, that it be a neutral state. He will seek to have them demilitarise. And significantly, I think he's even going to be so bold as to ask for additional territory to be ceded to Russia. So this is in no way a position that the president of Ukraine can accept.
Donald Trump's clearly getting a bit fed up with it, isn't he? Does he have any sway with Putin?
Well, it would appear not. The great negotiator, ceded a lot of negotiating advantage very early in this discussion. Putin is clearly not intimidated by him. I think he knows he's got the backing of President Xi in China and potentially, other countries in this loose axis of alignment who are supplying him significant war materiel. So far, Putin doesn't appear to be suffering terribly from the sanctions, at least personally. And we know he's actually remobilised his military-industrial capability, and we're actually seeing an uptick or restocking of Russian military capability. So Putin doesn't look intimidated to me.
I want to ask, because I know you're an expert in this area, the UN report has found that there were crimes against humanity committed by Russia in the Kherson region. They were using drones that were then armed with equipment. I guess that's modern warfare, but it's a crime against humanity according to the UN. It's your area of expertise, I know, and you've studied it. What does it signify that the UN has recognised this?
The UN is in a really difficult position here. We know Russia is not a signatory to the International Criminal Court, and of course Russia is a permanent member of the Security Council with veto powers. But the UN is doing what it needs to do to try and expose actions that are counter to the laws of war. Effectively, what we're talking about here is the specific attacking of the population. Laws of war accept that tragically some civilians will be killed if there is a legitimate military target nearby. But in this case, what the report is saying is that the Russians are attempting to terrorise the population directly, both through attacks through infrastructure and on the population. The problem is that, of course, it's very difficult to do anything about that. And unfortunately, we're seeing really important gains in the laws of war starting to be wound back in the face of this overt aggression from Russia. Eastern European nations have now declared that they will have to remove themselves from the agreement not to use mines and cluster munitions, for example, because they fear a Russian invasion into countries like Latvia and Lithuania. So what those countries are saying is, unfortunately, they have to go back on their previous undertaking to not use those sorts of weapons in the fear of being overrun. So unfortunately, in the face of hard-won gains going back to the 1990s, where we thought perhaps that state-on-state conflict like this might have been over, unfortunately, those gains are being reversed.
Retired Major General Gus Mclachlan, thank you.
Thank you, Lorna.